The evening sky burned red as the sun slowly sank behind the distant hills. The air was dry, filled with the smell of dust and heat. A cold wind swept across the empty land, rattling the old wooden walls of a lonely house. Outside, an old man worked on a broken water pump. His hands were rough, his clothes worn out, and his back bent with age. He lived alone, far from the noise of cities, far from the memories of the life he once had. To the people in the nearby town, he was just an old farmer who kept to himself. Nobody knew who he really was. Nobody knew what he had done many years ago. He wanted it that way. Once, long ago, he had been someone important. A leader. A name that carried respect and fear. But those days ended 15 years ago. He had buried that life along with his ship, his crew, and his title. Now he was just a man waiting for his quiet years to pass. But that evening, everything changed. It started as a faint sound in the distance. At first, the old man thought it was thunder. But the sky was clear, and the sound grew louder, like engines cutting through the wind. He stopped working and looked up. A small starship was coming down from the sky. The old man's heart skipped a beat. No one ever came out here. This was empty land. He stepped back slowly, his eyes fixed on the ship as it descended behind a cloud of dust and fire. It landed a short distance from his house, shaking the ground beneath his feet. The engine noise died, and the air fell silent. The old man waited, tense. He hadn't seen a starship in years. The door opened. Out of the fading smoke came a tall, slender figure. A girl. No, not a girl, not human. Her skin glowed faint silver under the evening light, and her hair fell like dark silk down her back. She walked slowly, as if each step carried a weight too heavy for her young shoulders. The old man watched, saying nothing. When she came closer, he saw her face clearly. She was young, maybe 20 in human years, but her eyes carried the kind of pain and memories only old soldiers had. She stopped a few feet away. For a long moment, she simply looked at him, her lips trembling, her hands shaking as if she wasn't sure he was real. And then she spoke. Her voice was soft but steady. "It's an honor to serve you again, Captain," she said. The words hit the old man like a blow. Captain. He hadn't heard that name in 15 years. The title was gone with the war, gone with his ship, gone with the men and women he had lost. He thought it would never return. But here it was. The old man frowned, his eyes narrowing. "You have the wrong man," he said finally, his voice dry like the land around them. "I'm no captain." But the alien girl shook her head. "No," she whispered. "You are. You will always be. The galaxy still remembers you, even if you try to forget." He stared at her, his heart heavy. "Why are you here?" The girl looked at the ground for a moment, as if choosing her words carefully. Then she met his eyes. "Because the enemy has returned." The old man felt a coldness spread through his chest. "No," he said slowly. "They were destroyed. I saw the war end." The girl's voice trembled now. "You saw one battle end, not the war. They hid. They waited. Now they are awake again, and stronger than before." The old man turned away. He didn't want this. He didn't want the weight, the blood, the memories. That life was gone. But the girl's next words stopped him cold. "Your ship is waiting for you." The old man froze. His ship? No, it was gone. Destroyed in the last great battle. "It's alive," the girl said softly, as if she could read his thoughts. "The AI kept it alive. It knew you would return one day. It knew the galaxy would need you again." The old man's chest rose and fell slowly. After 15 years, after all the silence, the past was calling him back. He didn't want to answer, but somewhere deep inside, a part of him, the part that once led men into fire and darkness, was waking up again. The wind picked up, carrying the first chill of night. Far above, beyond the stars, danger was coming. The old man didn't know it yet, but this was the beginning. The captain was about to rise again. Night fell over the lonely land. The wind howled softly through the dry hills as the old man sat on his porch, staring at the small starship parked outside his home. The alien girl sat quietly near the door, her eyes fixed on the dark sky above. Neither spoke for a long time. The silence was heavy, like both of them carried memories too painful to touch. Finally, the old man broke the silence. His voice was low, rough like stone scraping against stone. "You said, the enemy has returned," he said slowly. "Tell me everything." The alien girl turned to him. The glow of the porch light touched her silver skin, making her look like a figure from another world, beautiful and strange, but tired in a way no young girl should be. She took a deep breath. 15 years ago, she began softly. "When your ship was lost, everyone believed the war was over. People celebrated. Colonies rebuilt. But my people, we kept watching the far edges of the galaxy. We knew the enemy wasn't gone. We knew they would come back." The old man's eyes stayed on her, sharp and cold. "And now, they are moving again," she whispered, "taking small colonies first, testing defenses. Soon, they will strike the core worlds." The old man leaned back in his chair, his face like stone. He remembered that enemy well, their ships like floating knives, their weapons burning through fleets in minutes. He had watched too many friends die fighting them. "I'm not the man you think I am," he said finally, his voice heavy. "I'm not a captain anymore." The girl shook her head. "You will always be the captain," she said softly. "Even your enemies still call you that. They fear you." The old man looked at her sharply. "Fear me? After all these years?" "Yes," she said simply. "Because of what you did in the last war. Because of your ship." The old man's jaw tightened. Memories came back like ghosts rising from the dust. Flashes of battlefields among the stars. The screams of his crew over broken comms. The fire of his ship falling into darkness. He had buried those memories deep, but the girl's words tore them open again. "My ship is gone," he said after a moment. "Destroyed." The girl hesitated. Then she leaned forward. "No, Captain. It survived." The old man turned to her sharply. She nodded slowly. "Your ship's AI, it saved itself. It hid in the outer systems, repairing what it could. Waiting. Watching. It always believed you would come back." The old man felt something twist in his chest. A machine, waiting for him? For 15 years? Why didn't it come to me?" he asked finally. "Because," the girl said, her voice almost a whisper, "the enemy would have found it if it moved, stayed hidden until I found you, until the time was right." The old man stood slowly, looking out at the night sky. Somewhere out there, beyond those cold stars, a ship he once commanded was alive, waiting for him. And somewhere else, an enemy fleet was gathering. The wind blew harder, carrying the smell of dust and metal. The alien girl stood too, stepping closer. "Captain," she said softly, "the Alliance needs you again. The colonies need you. That ship needs you." The old man shook his head. "I gave everything in the last war. My crew, my friends. All gone. I'm not going back." The girl's eyes softened. "I understand," she said quietly. "But the enemy will not stop. And when they come, there will be no one left to fight them. Except you." Her words hung in the cold night air. The old man walked a few steps away, his hands behind his back. He felt the weight of years pressing down on him. He had come here to escape war, to escape death, to live the rest of his life in silence. But now the past had found him. The girl reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. She pressed a button, and a blue hologram flickered to life. It was his ship, scarred, damaged, but alive. The old man stared at the image, his jaw tight. "It's waiting for you, Captain," the girl said softly. "It always has." The wind blew colder now, as if carrying the warning of the coming storm. The old man said nothing, but inside, something long buried had started to wake. The next morning was cold and gray. A thin mist covered the hills, making the world feel quiet, almost waiting. The old man stood outside his house, his arms crossed, staring at the small starship that had landed the day before. The alien girl was already awake, preparing the ship for flight. She had said little since last night. Her face was calm, but there was a shadow in her eyes, like someone carrying a burden too heavy to share. The old man walked slowly toward her. "You really believe it's still there?" he asked. She looked up at him. "I know it is," she said softly. "I've seen it." The old man's eyes narrowed. 15 years ago, he had watched his ship vanish in the chaos of battle. He had believed it was gone forever, burned up in the fires of war along with the friends he lost. But now this girl was telling him it had survived. He wasn't sure he wanted to believe her. She stepped closer, her voice lower now. "I can take you to it. It has been hidden all these years, far from the eyes of the enemy, waiting for its captain." The old man felt a strange mix of fear and longing inside him. That ship had been more than metal and wires. It had been his home, his family, his life, and now it was calling him back. "Where?" he asked finally. The girl looked at him steadily. "The desert, far from here, buried under the sands." The old man hesitated, then nodded. "Let's go." The small starship lifted off, carrying them across miles of empty land. The world below was dry and broken, a place forgotten by time itself. For hours they flew over endless dunes of red sand. Nothing lived out here. No towns, no farms, only the wind carving strange shapes into the earth. The girl piloted in silence, her eyes fixed on the horizon. The old man sat beside her, staring at the barren land below, lost in his own thoughts. Finally she spoke. "Do you remember the last battle?" The old man's jaw tightened. "I remember too much," he said quietly. Her voice softened. "I was there. I was only a child, but I remember your ship fighting when all others had fallen. You saved so many lives that day." The old man said nothing. Memories of fire, smoke, and screaming voices filled his mind. He had lost good people in that fight. He had buried their names in his heart and never spoken them again. He didn't want to remember, but soon he would have no choice. Hours later, the girl guided the ship down toward a wide, empty canyon. The ground below was cracked and dry, stretching endlessly in every direction. The ship landed with a soft thud, kicking up clouds of red dust. The girl stood and turned to him. "It's here," she said simply. The old man stepped out into the hot, dry air. The wind burned his face as he looked around. All he saw was sand. "This place is empty," he said. The girl walked ahead, her boots crunching on the ground. "Not empty," she said. "Hidden." They reached a flat stretch of ground in the center of the canyon. The girl pressed a small device into the sand. A deep rumble shook the earth. The ground began to split apart. Dust and rocks fell as massive metal doors slowly opened beneath their feet. The old man stepped back, his eyes widening. Out of the darkness below, lights flickered to life. And then he saw it. His ship, resting in the underground hangar like a sleeping giant, scarred but whole. Its dark metal surface gleamed faintly under the lights. The old battle marks were still there, burned edges, deep cracks, but it was alive. Waiting. The old man felt his chest tighten. He hadn't seen it in 15 years. The alien girl watched his face. "It never left," she said softly. "The AI kept it safe. It repaired what it could. It always believed you would return." The old man walked slowly to the edge of the platform, staring down at the warship. Memories crashed through him like a storm. His crew laughing on the bridge, the sound of engines roaring, the ship's voice greeting him every morning. And now, after all these years, it was here, waiting for its captain. The girl looked at him. "It's more than a ship," she said quietly. "It holds something the galaxy forgot. A secret weapon, one the enemy fears." The old man turned to her sharply. "What weapon?" She hesitated, her eyes dark. "I'll show you," she said. "But once you see it, there is no turning back." The old man looked again at the ship below, silent. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled across the sky. Or maybe it was war coming closer. Either way, the past was no longer buried. The old man stood at the edge of the platform, staring at the warship resting in the underground hangar. The metal giant lay silent, its dark surface shining faintly under the dim lights. Dust covered its edges, Scars from old battles still marked its hull, but even after 15 years, it looked ready to rise again. The alien girl stood beside him, her silver skin glowing softly in the artificial light. Her eyes never left the ship as she spoke in a low voice. "It has waited for you all this time," she said. "It never stopped believing you would return." The old man's hands tightened behind his back. For 15 years he had buried this part of his life. This ship, this war, this title of captain that had cost him everything. He came here to forget, to live in silence. But the past had dug him out again. The hangar echoed with the sound of machines as the doors below slowly opened wider, revealing the warship's landing ramp. The alien girl looked at him. "It wants to see you," she said softly. The old man didn't move for a long time. His face was unreadable, his eyes fixed on the ship like a man staring at a ghost from his own past. Finally, slowly, he walked toward the ramp. The inside of the ship was cold and dark. As the old man stepped through the airlock, lights flickered on one by one, illuminating the narrow metal corridors. The air smelled of old dust and machine oil. He walked slowly, his boots echoing on the metal floor. Memories came back with every step, voices of his crew laughing here, shouts of battle commands there, the sound of alarms ringing through these same halls years ago. He reached the bridge. The captain's chair stood in the center, facing the dark windows where stars once filled the view. He ran a hand slowly over the armrest. Felt the same. Felt like home. Then a voice spoke. "Welcome back, Captain." It was the ship's AI. The old man froze. That voice, it had not spoken to him in 15 years, yet it was exactly as he remembered. Calm, steady, almost alive. "Systems report ready," the AI continued. "Engines repaired. Weapons operational. Awaiting orders." The old man said nothing. He stood there for a long time, one hand gripping the captain's chair. The alien girl entered behind him. She looked around the bridge, her eyes wide as if stepping into a legend she had only heard about in stories. "The enemy fears this ship," she said quietly, "because it carries something no other ship has." The old man turned to her slowly. "The weapon," he said. She nodded. He looked around the bridge again. Once, this ship had been his life. It had carried him through battles no one believed could be won. It had saved thousands. But it had also taken lives. So many lives. He closed his eyes. "I swore I would never come back here," he said finally. His voice was heavy, like the weight of all those years pressed against his chest. "I lost too much." The girl stepped closer. "I know," she said softly. "But if you don't fight, the galaxy will lose everything." The old man looked at the main console where the ship's systems flickered to life. He felt the same feeling he had all those years ago before every battle. Fear, yes, but also responsibility. This ship wasn't just metal and wires. It was hope. But hope always came with a price. As he stood there, the AI spoke again. "Captain," it said. "Enemy signals detected on long-range sensors." The alien girl's eyes widened. "They found us." "Not yet," the AI replied. "But they are searching." The old man turned toward the main screen. A red light blinked faintly, marking the enemy fleet far away but moving closer. He gripped the edge of the console. 15 years ago, he had walked away from war, from death, from command. He had wanted only peace. But war was coming to find him again. The alien girl looked at him. "The alliance is broken," she said. "The colonies are not ready. Without you, they will fall." The old man felt the weight of her words pressing down on him. He looked at the captain's chair again. For years, he had dreamed of never seeing it again. Now it was waiting for him. He slowly lowered himself into the chair. The metal creaked softly under his weight. The bridge lights brightened. The engines hummed deeper, and the AI spoke once more. "Awaiting your command, Captain." The old man said nothing. He stared at the dark screen ahead where enemy signals blinked slowly like distant eyes watching them. He didn't want this fight, but it was coming for him anyway, and he knew only he could stop it. The warship's engines hummed softly, like a giant waking after a long sleep. Lights along the corridors glowed faintly, systems coming alive one by one. On the main screen, red dots blinked slowly, marking the enemy fleet far away but moving closer. The old man sat in the captain's chair, silent, his eyes fixed on those red lights. His face was calm, but his hands rested tightly on the armrests. 15 years had passed since he last sat here. 15 years since the war ended, or so he thought. Now, it seemed the war had been waiting for him all along. The alien girl stood near the console, her silver skin glowing in the bridge light. Her eyes stayed on the enemy signals approaching from deep space. "They are searching for us," she said softly. The ship's AI spoke in its calm, steady voice. "Enemy scouts detected. Estimated time to arrival, 2 days. 2 days. The old man's jaw tightened. He had wanted a quiet life. He had wanted peace. But peace had never wanted him. The alien girl turned to him. "Captain," she said, her voice low but steady. "They fear this ship. That is why they will come with everything they have. They know what it carries." The old man looked at her sharply. "The weapon," he said. She nodded slowly. "The last weapon of the old alliance. The only thing that can destroy their command ship." The old man leaned back in the chair. He remembered the last war, how the enemy's mothership had seemed unstoppable, how entire fleets had fallen before its firepower. And now it was coming again. He turned to the AI. "Status of the ship?" "Engines operational," the AI replied. "Shields at 60%. Weapons online but untested after repairs. Crew missing." The old man's eyes darkened at that last part. A ship could be repaired. Weapons could be replaced. But people could not. His crew was gone. The friends who once filled these halls with voices and laughter. They were ghosts now, lost to time and war. He felt the weight of command pressing down on him again. The alien girl spoke softly. "There are others," she said, "hidden in the outer systems. Survivors from the old alliance. They will come if they know you have returned." The old man looked at her. "And if they don't?" She hesitated, then said quietly, "Then we fight alone." The words hung in the air like cold smoke. The old man turned his eyes back to the screen. The enemy fleet was still far away, but he knew how fast they could move. He had seen them tear through defenses before anyone even realized what was happening. He could almost hear the screams again. The girl stepped closer to him. "They remember you," she said softly. "Not just the alliance. The enemy. They remember what you did in the last war. That is why they want to kill you before you rise again." The old man gave a small, bitter smile. "I'm just one man." The girl shook her head. "You're the man who turned the tide 15 years ago. The man whose ship disappeared, leaving the enemy thinking it was gone forever. They fear the return of the ghost that once defeated them." The old man's eyes went to the floor. A ghost. Yes, maybe that was all he was now. A ghost of a man who once carried too many lives on his shoulders. But the galaxy didn't need peace anymore. It needed the man he used to be. Suddenly the ship's AI spoke again. "Alert! Enemy scout ships have entered the system. Estimated time to detection 12 hours. The alien girl looked at the old man sharply. "They're closer than we thought." The old man stood slowly. His back was straight now, his eyes cold. "Prepare the ship," he said. "If they find us, we can't let them report our location." The girl nodded and moved to the weapons console. Systems powered up with a deep hum, lights glowing brighter across the bridge. For a moment, the old man felt the years peel away. He was no longer the lonely farmer hiding from his past. He was the captain again, and the storm was coming. Far away, in the darkness of space, the enemy fleet moved like a pack of wolves closing in on prey. Their scout ships swept through the system, scanning, searching. On the warship's bridge, the alien girl watched the sensors nervously. The enemy scouts were getting closer with every passing minute. The old man stood behind her, his voice calm but sharp. "Keep shields low," he ordered. "No energy spikes. Make them think this place is empty." The ship's AI confirmed. "Stealth protocols active." The old man's eyes narrowed. He knew it was only a matter of time. Sooner or later, the enemy would find them. And when they did, the real war would begin. The night sky above the desert was dark and silent. Stars shone faintly through thin clouds as the old warship sat hidden deep in the underground hangar. Inside, the lights glowed softly, systems running at full power now. The ship was ready. On the bridge, the old man stood tall, his hands resting on the back of the captain's chair. The alien girl was at the weapons console, her silver eyes scanning the sensors. The enemy scouts were close. Too close. "Report," the old man said. The ship's AI replied in its calm voice. "3 enemy scouts have entered low orbit. They are scanning the surface. Detection is likely in less than 1 hour." The alien girl turned sharply. "They will find us," she said. The old man nodded slowly. "Then we leave before they can call the fleet." The engines hummed louder, ready to rise after 15 years of silence. Dust fell from the ceiling as the ship's power grew stronger. But before they could launch, the alarm screamed. "Alert!" the AI said sharply. "Enemy scouts have locked on to our location. Incoming fire detected." The ground shook violently as a blast from above slammed into the hangar doors. Metal groaned. Dust filled the air. "They found us," the alien girl said, her voice tight. The old man's jaw hardened. "Shields up. Weapons ready. We launch now." The massive doors above them split apart as the warship's engines roared to life. Blue fire lit the hangar as the ship slowly rose from its long tomb. Outside, the enemy scouts circled like vultures, firing again and again. The old man stood in the center of the bridge, his eyes cold and steady. "Target the nearest scout," he ordered. The alien girl's fingers flew over the console. "Locked on," she said. "Fire," the old man said. The warship's main guns blazed. A beam of white-hot energy shot across the night sky, striking the first enemy ship. It exploded in a ball of fire, pieces falling like burning rain. The other scouts broke formation, circling wider now. "They are calling the fleet," the alien girl warned. "Then we finish them before help arrives," the old man said sharply. The warship rose higher into the sky, its guns blazing again. The second scout tried to dodge, firing back, but the old ship's shields held strong. Another shot from the warship ripped the enemy apart. The third scout tried to run. The old man's voice was cold. "No survivors. Take it down." The alien girl fired. The last scout ship exploded before it could escape. For a moment, the sky was quiet again. But the sensors told a different story. "Enemy fleet detected," the AI said. "Estimated arrival, 20 minutes. The alien girl looked at the old man. "We can't fight an entire fleet alone." The old man stared at the red dots filling the screen. "We don't have to fight them all," he said. "We take the command ship, cut off the head, and the rest will fall apart." The warship climbed through the clouds, leaving the desert behind. Stars filled the windows as they broke through the atmosphere into the cold darkness of space. Ahead, the enemy fleet appeared on the screen, dozens of warships forming a wall of firepower. At the center was the command ship, massive and heavily armed. The alien girl's voice was tense. "Their weapons will tear us apart before we get close." The old man turned to her. "That's why we use the weapon." She froze. "Are you sure?" "Once we activate it, there is no turning back." The old man's eyes stayed on the enemy fleet. "Do it," he said. Deep inside the warship, systems long dormant came to life. Energy built in the core, glowing brighter, hotter, stronger. The enemy fleet detected the power surge and moved in quickly, firing long-range weapons. Explosions shook the ship as the enemy closed in. Alarms screamed. Sparks fell from the ceiling. The alien girl gripped the console. "Shields at 40%. The old man stood firm in the center of the bridge. "Hold steady," he ordered. The enemy fleet moved closer, blocking the stars with their massive ships. "Weapon charged," the AI announced. The old man raised his hand. "Fire!" A beam of pure energy burst from the warship's core, cutting across the darkness like the hand of a god. It struck the enemy command ship dead center. For a moment, There was only silence. Then the command ship exploded in a blinding flash, tearing itself apart from the inside. Pieces of burning metal scattered through space. The rest of the enemy fleet froze, their formations breaking apart. Without their leader, confusion spread quickly. The old man turned to the alien girl. Hit their engines. Leave them stranded. The warship fired again and again, destroying the enemy's power systems. Within minutes, the fleet was no longer a threat. But the victory came at a cost. The warship shook violently. Fires burned through the lower decks. Core overheating. The AI warned. Containment failing. The alien girl's eyes widened. The weapon damaged us too much. We can't hold it together. The old man's face was calm, but his heart was heavy. He knew what had to be done. Prepare the escape pods, he said. The alien girl turned sharply. And you? The old man looked at the burning ship around him. This ship needs a captain until the end. The warship burned like a dying star drifting through the darkness. Sparks shot from broken panels. Smoke filled the corridors. An alarm screamed across every deck. The battle was over, the enemy fleet destroyed, but the ship itself was tearing apart from the inside. On the bridge, the old man stood tall in the captain's chair. His eyes stayed calm as he looked at the flames spreading on the lower levels through the security screens. The alien girl stood at the weapons console, her silver skin glowing faintly under the red emergency lights. Escape pods are ready, the ship's AI announced. The old man nodded slowly. He turned to the alien girl. You have to leave now. She shook her head sharply. No, not without you. You must, the old man said firmly. The ship won't hold much longer. Someone has to carry the warning. Someone has to tell the Alliance the enemy is gone. Her hands clenched at her sides. Then come with me, she said. We can both leave. The old man looked around the bridge. The same bridge where he had spent years leading battles, where his crew had laughed and fought and died beside him. This ship needs a captain until the end, he said quietly. The alien girl's voice broke. You can't stay. You'll die. The old man gave a faint smile. I was supposed to die 15 years ago. This ship gave me those extra years. Now I will give it a proper ending. She stared at him, her silver eyes shining with tears. Another explosion rocked the ship, throwing sparks across the bridge. The old man grabbed the console to steady himself. Core breach in 5 minutes, the AI warned. The alien girl turned to the escape pod doors. Her hands shook. She didn't want to leave. She didn't want to abandon the man who had saved so many lives, the man the galaxy once called captain. Go, the old man said firmly. That's an order. She froze at those words. Even after all these years, his voice carried the same strength, the same command it had in the war. Slowly, painfully, she nodded. But as she stepped toward the escape pod, she turned back one last time. It was an honor to serve you again, Captain, she whispered. The old man didn't answer. He only gave her a small nod, his eyes soft for the first time since the battle began. She climbed into the escape pod. The door sealed shut. Moments later, the pod launched away from the burning warship, falling into the darkness of space like a single tear dropping into an endless sea. On the bridge, the old man sat in the captain's chair one final time. The flames grew brighter outside the windows as the core tore itself apart deep inside the ship. The AI spoke softly now, almost like it understood what was coming. Core breach in 3 minutes. Captain, it has been an honor. The old man rested his hand on the console. You did well, he said quietly. Better than anyone expected. The AI's voice flickered for a moment, like static. One last battle, it said. The old man gave a faint smile. One last battle, he agreed. Outside, the enemy fleet was in chaos. Leaderless, scattered. Their ships drifted helplessly as fires burned across their decks. The old man's warship floated among them like a wounded beast surrounded by the hunters it had already killed. In the distance, the small escape pod carrying the alien girl sped toward friendly space. Inside it, she watched the warship on the screen. Her hands gripped the seat tightly, her heart pounding. She wanted to scream at him to leave, to save himself. But she knew he wouldn't. He was the captain, and a captain never left his ship before the end. On the bridge, the old man watched the countdown on the screen. 2 minutes. He leaned back in the chair, his eyes on the stars outside. They were so bright tonight, like they had come closer just to see him off. For 15 years, he had tried to run from this life, from this title, from this war. But in the end, it had found him again. And he had answered. He thought of his old crew, the ones who had fallen in the last war. Maybe now he would see them again, wherever soldiers went after the battles ended. The ship shook violently. The lights flickered. 1 minute. The old man closed his eyes for a moment. Then he opened them and looked at the stars one last time. "Let's finish this," he said softly. The core exploded. A blinding flash lit up the darkness as the warship went down in a storm of fire. The shockwave tore through the empty space, scattering the broken enemy fleet, shaking the stars themselves. When the light faded, only silence remained. The war was over. Hours later, the alien girl's escape pod was picked up by Alliance ships. She stepped out silently, her face pale, her eyes red. "The captain?" someone asked softly. She looked back toward the empty sky where the warship had burned. Her voice trembled. "He stayed with the ship," she said. "Until the end." No one spoke. Soldiers bowed their heads. The story of the last captain spread quickly across the stars. The man who came back after 15 years, who rose one final time to save them all, who gave his life so the galaxy could live. And everywhere his name was spoken, one line always followed. "It was an honor to serve you again, Captain."